Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Premier League panel show here at American Scouser. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here. Smaller panel today than what we had like the last month or two. We don't even need the full size table. We can just get like a bistro table and like sit around and like talk about stuff. But no match day. Obviously, this past weekend with the FA Cup and stuff like that. I'm sure Io has a lot of memories from this past weekend, so we'll talk about that kind of stuff. So a couple of topics that I wanted to kind of touch on today, and then we'll kind of like look ahead to the fixtures. We'll have an international break coming in, so we'll have a lot more time, I feel like, to do end of like final predictions as we head to the last curve kind of a thing. But a couple of topics. Sir Zizbel, good evening, sir. Let's take a look at the standings over here because obviously you're going to be, yeah, see, I always the favorites. I don't know what it is, but it must be the United aspect because we will have to scroll down to get to you guys. But
yeah, that's why. That's why. He just wants to throw in.
That's basically why.
Yeah.
But man, that shit looks good, doesn't it? It's like all the way on top there. But we'll admire that a little bit. Brentford, 11th over there, and then 14th United. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. Obviously, with the weekend action, there's more talk. I'm kind of torn on this. I was always torn on the Ten Hag's initial phases and stuff like that too. But his records, I had just pulled it up over here. This is for the Premier League. It's 5-3-8. And 21 goals scored, 27 against. And obviously a lot of criticism for him sticking with what he knows, not adjusting it to the team and stuff like that. I guess my first question is, are you okay with that as a United fan? Or are you like, I mean, you can make some tweaks. We used to talk to Jake about, Spurs when they had the injuries and stuff like that. Like, as a United fan, are you like, I understand that, but we don't have to play Maguire on the wing. I mean, he's not. But you know what I mean? Like, you can make little tweaks. Does that get frustrating, or you're like, it's part of growing pains?
It gets frustrating. And, I think I said it here before. Maybe I haven't, but I'm fine with the back three, right? Like, I don't really think the back three is the issue. I've said this a lot of times on different platforms, right? Formations are just a starting point,
Yeah.
right? It's a starting point. Like, what matters more is the structure and play to your player's strength. I think that's where I have a problem with him. It's like when we had players fit, he wasn't playing like players to their strength. He wasn't taking enough risk with the wing back. He was playing two defenders in the wing back role, and he just wasn't attacking enough for me. He wasn't taking enough risk. So that's the thing that really, especially against teams that talent-wise, we're kind of on par. I get it when he was doing it against City, Liverpool, or whatever, or Arsenal. But there were times we played teams that we're on par with. He still was doing the same thing, and that's when we were fit. Now we have less bodies. Rashford has left. Anthony has left. I'm out for the season. So now I mean, at this point, he doesn't have a choice. He has to play defenders there. But when we were fit, he wasn't doing that, and that's my main problem. So when people talk about the back three, in the back four, we're terrible under Ten Hag. That's not really back three or back four.
Yeah.
It's the how he's implementing the structure, the gaps in the midfield. Why you're not attacking it or you're not taking enough risk. Why do we have 5 players at the back and we still concede like very stupid goals? Why are we still conceding goals through set pieces? Those are things that are coaching issues, in my opinion, that needs to be addressed. And I'm just going to take time.
It's like fans pick up on that stuff for some reason, right? I mean, I've seen this like, in Liverpool, we haven't changed the back line as much, but like, Fenerbahce, my like hometown team, like, we had Vitor Pereira, who's at Wolves now. He was the manager and he would like went to a back three and he was talking about like 3-5-2 and stuff. And everybody was like, you can't do back three doesn't work, blah, blah. I mean, Mourinho is there now. He's actually playing with a back three, but he's not advertising it for the most part, right? Like he's not really like specifying that we're playing with a back three. So nobody even knows. Like people don't even understand it's actually a back three that becomes a 5, becomes a 3, sometimes it's a 4. Like you're saying, it evolves during the game, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes fans is like, fans pick up one thing. Like they played with that formation in FIFA and lost. So they don't like that. That doesn't work in FIFA. So it's not gonna work for United and stuff.
As a narrative, also, people pick up on narratives. Once the narrative is out there, people just say it so many times, everybody starts believing the narrative. I think that's what happens a lot. It's like, that's not the problem. If you watch the game, that's not the problem.
As an outsider, Glenn, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Io, but in terms of our squads, I know what I was saying. Like right now, it's probably different, right? Let's go back a month or whatever. Where would you put? Because everybody's like, "Oh, but the team is crap, the squad is crap, and stuff like that." I mean, I don't know. You look at the squad. I mean, this is like very similar to the squad that was like more higher up before, right? When Ten Hag was all happy and stuff like that. But where do you put it? Like, I mean, they're what was it, 14th or whatever? You look at the team, the squad itself in the Premier League. Where would you rank and say this squad should be somewhere here?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? Yeah, do you look at money spent? Do you look at form? Do you look at like the synergy of the team? Like there's so many factors to take into account. Like
go with base quality.
yeah,
Because the manager coming in, that's what you're working with. You don't have
yeah,
control over how much was paid for people,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
base quality.
Yeah, I mean, base quality it should be in a European spot, right? I think that's probably fair enough. I mean, it's not functioning right now, so it doesn't look as if there is a huge amount of quality as a group. That's the problem, and that's what Amorim keeps saying, right? He's finding this group very difficult to work with, and whether that's his shortcomings or theirs, at the minute, it's probably a bit of both, right? Is probably where it lands. But the players certainly aren't helping themselves, and they're certainly not helping him. They're not making his life easy at all. They're making it really challenging. But you do look at the squad, and I mean, Bruno Fernandes, as usual, he kind of just like drags this team, right? He tries to drag them across the finish line. He always gets these important goals, just like this weekend, right, in the FA Cup. He always works hard. And I know he gets a lot of stick, and I know for some people, he's not their cup of tea for captaincy, which I get, and I whatever, but nonetheless, he is an elite player, right? He's probably like, I don't know, arguably maybe top 5 in the Premier League player if you could pick one for your team. You wouldn't be looking very far elsewhere for a centre mid. And then you look around. I'm just looking at the team that just about scraped past Ipswich, made really hard work of Ipswich. Although to their credit, were a player down for a fair amount of it. To their credit, that was really important, I think, for the squad. But the new signing gets sent off for a rash challenge, right? He's been begging for a player to operate on the left wing. And for me, it just summed up this season. It was the epitome of probably how he sees his luck right now. He gets a player he wants, he slots them in, they get sent off in ridiculous fashion, right? You look at the back and like, yeah, De Ligt has quality, but you look at Maguire, Euro, Dallo it blows hot and cold, I feel. And then you look, the problem is, right, and I'm sure we'd all agree with this, is just how it's working up front, right? This kind of perpetual goal drought we're seeing with United, which is so un-United like. It is so weird for Manchester United to struggle to score goals. Similarly to how Arsenal, up until tonight, have really struggled for goals. You look at this Arsenal team, you think there's goals in it. You take away Saka, you take away a forward, you take away Havertz.
It should be in the Dutch league. I was going to tell Alex. We solved the striker problem. Just go to Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, the way Højlund's playing and Xerxes, they could play in the Dutch league for about 6 months and probably come away with 1 assist between them, right? That's the confidence they have right now, right? There's a reason we're looking for teenagers, essentially from the youth team to fill this void, who are coming on in an FA Cup to try and get a really important goal. For me, Garnacho is still is such a good player because I just love how direct he is. I get that he doesn't really suit the system hugely. There's issues there, maybe attitude, but for me, Garnacho is an exciting player, and they're kind of hard to come by. But honestly, if you're really, really are working with Xerxes and Højlund, that's who you've essentially made your bed with this season. You said these are the people we're going to back. We're going to back with money and starts to get goals. It's not great. So I guess, I look at this starting 11 that started against Ipswich, and maybe you compare them to a Bournemouth team that's really exciting, to a Newcastle team that's flying. And I'm going from below 5th here to a Brighton team that has bounced back from their drubbing against Forest brilliantly with a succession of wins. To a Villa team, would I prefer the Aston Villa squad with their additions in January or this United team to work with for the end of the season? Yeah, I would pick Villa. Hands down, not even a question. And Rashford starting in the Champions League tonight, right? There's these weird things that are going on. Anthony is flying in Spain. Say what you will about him, but he's flying. I just look at this. I think that the buck stops with like Brentford, Palace. West Ham. These are all squads that I'm just like, I'm not going to compare them. But honestly, from maybe like 10th, 9th upwards, I think you're struggling to see this United team flying past other squads, because I just look at that starting 11 and it doesn't really fill me with much joy. It makes me pretty sad. It's just Bruno Fernandes is this superstar that really stands out. Anana, I don't think anyone's knocking down the door for Anana to join their teams, for better or worse, right? He's been a letdown, I think, over the time he's been there. So, all right, I'll just say a top 8. It's a top 8 squad as it looks like right now. That's what I'll go with.
The only thing I disagree is that I think it is a joy.
Oh yeah, I don't care. It's a pain for fans. Oh yeah, it's just sad. It's just amazing, isn't it? To Man United, growing up in England, right? This team that was like the team when I was like in primary school. I was like 7, 8, 9, 10. It's United. I'm in the south of England. It's United shirts everywhere. It's icons, right? I've said this before on the show. It's players that Rooney, Ronaldo, players in their prime, right? Just Premier League icons. And you just compare like a snapshot of that Sir Alex Ferguson team, and you compare it to this, and it is like the palest imitation, right? There is just none of that dynamism. And what obviously is what Ferguson did is he made average players look excellent. He had superstars, but he made some real okay players really excel. And it feels like at the minute, you've got players who are kind of decent who are being made to look worse than they are because they're just not functioning together. So for me, it's kind of like the opposite of this Ferguson, this squad that has like such dynamism because they're all working to the same goal. It's just a bunch of fractures from the outside point of view. It feels like a bunch of kind of fractured individuals who don't, people call in 606, the BBC phone-in show, and they're just like, this is the worst United team I've seen. I've watched them for 60 years and I haven't seen a team with less passion. So top 8, I'll stick with that because I'd take the Bournemouth quality at the minute, the way they're playing, over this bunch.
I mean, same question to Ayo. It's hard, right? It's difficult to judge because we can't help but look at current form and stuff like that when we look at it. I think, if I put all the squads on paper and gave it to you beginning of the season, and I know you said it before that you were never in every agreement and giving money to Ten Hag to spend and even bring more of his guys and stuff like that. But if I gave you all those sheets and I said, hey, these are all the squads going into the Premier League, like without looking at form or anything like that, where would you put the quality, the base quality, not value, because we know that's really skewed, but base quality of the squad, where do you think they would be? I don't think they would be 14th, right?
No, absolutely not. I think base quality 8th, 9th. But the thing that's very important is this, right? Football teams are supposed to be complementary. Players are supposed to be complementary. And like Glenn said, I think the biggest issue is this. What made last season we came 8th, but our underlying numbers said we should have finished 14th, actually. That's what our underlying, where we are currently right now. And we've been pretty much almost all season, like 12, 13, 14. That's where we've been all season. Now, I think where the problem is, when we came 3rd, right? The bulk of the players that carried that team to the 3rd position was Bruno. Rashford had a crazy goal scoring season. Casemiro, probably he said it himself in an interview, that's been his best season ever individually, not awards and just individually. Casemiro gave us his last legs in that season. Varane had a very, very good season. So that was the core of the team that carried us when we came 3rd. And when you look at it now, Varane is gone. Casemiro is pretty much gone. He's a shadow of himself.
His legs are gone, yeah.
His legs are gone, yeah. Rashford has been sold. So it's just Bruno left. Literally, it's just Bruno left. So that's literally what happened. And I think the second thing is giving Ten Hag that extended contract and buying players for himself was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made. And what happened is we recruited worse players. That's just what happened. Over time, if you go even further back from Solskjaer's time and you go, we recruited worse players and we literally went backwards. That's what happened. I think Højlund is showing that he might be a flop at this point. He's showing like that. Xerxes is a player that he'll be like an addition, like a side dish. It's like, that's what Xerxes would be. He's a good player, but he's not a guy that can carry a team.
Yeah.
Right? Ugarte is useful for specific situations. Backs to the wall, like grind, win tackles, but he can't pass. Meno is hurt. Meno that was fine last season is hurt all of this season. He's been hurt in and out. Who else are the new players that came into the team? Onana looks, like it was a terrible mistake. He keeps making error after error.
Yep.
The defenders are okay, actually. Like Mazraoui is okay. He's not great, but he's okay. He's actually a good run of games. I think
And
Drake's
it's
okay.
contagious too. I mean, if their
It is.
center, if your
It is.
defensive midfielder in front of you is like 95 years old and can't run anymore, it makes the defensive line automatically worse. If the winger in front of you is not tracking back, automatically it makes your back. So it is kind of contagious, I think. Like in a team that's even like a guy like Xerxes, even like a guy like Ugarte in a functioning team, you maybe put Ugarte over there and he's a lot better. You
I
know what I
totally
mean? Like
agree.
they will like look a lot better. But is it kind of a disservice? I mean, is he going about the right way? And I know, the word is he didn't want to come in January.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they're like, we don't care what you do, just come. We're busy canceling lunches over here. Like, you just come and screw up the team, kind of a thing. So he comes over, but isn't he almost making it worse psychologically for the team? Because a new manager comes in, that new manager smells, certain things are changing and stuff like that. But nobody likes change. But if it is working, everybody is for it. Like nothing is changing. It's only getting worse. So it's not like he can flip the switch in June and be like, okay, now we're starting, because you're demoralizing the squads more and more and more, getting more criticism from like a guy like Hoyland, for example, maybe in a more productive environments, he might not be a superstar, but he might be a serviceable guy that comes off the bench, when you
He
need a
was
goal or
last season.
something
He
like
was.
that.
He scored a
Yeah.
bunch of goals last season. He was. He was
Yeah.
last season.
So, but I mean, now you're like almost like demoralizing and getting all the fans turning on these players, kind of like they did with Rashford, to be honest, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Are they like kind of doing themselves a disservice by letting this go on? Because you can't just flip the switch when it comes to confidence and morale and things like that.
I think I think the main thing is he came in and they wanted to just the rest of the season as a preseason, right? Like, okay, this is kind of a preseason, still get results, blah blah blah. I think Amorim made a couple of mistakes, in my opinion. I think his first and his biggest mistake was player management. We can talk about tactics till the cow come home. The player management when he came in, I think he didn't need. You can get Rashford out of the team. Like I think a manager is allowed to choose the type of players he wants. But the approach in which he got Rashford out of the team, I think, was not necessary. It almost looked like he was looking for an excuse to like cover his own tactical flaws because he went about it the wrong way, in my opinion. Like just kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. I think that was the first big mistake I think Amorim made. I think the second thing is what I talked about earlier. It's like, yeah, play your back three, but look at the strengths of the players you have and look at how you want to deploy it within the system you're like the country you're coming to play, your structure, the structure of the team is off. And yet, I don't think you can lose your way to becoming better. I agree with that. You can't nobody loses their way to becoming better. And I think the big disservice Ineos and Amorim by coming has done to himself now is he has a very short leash next season. That's the thing. Like he's going to be fine. We're gonna have this. But next season, if he has a bad start, October, November, and it's bad, he's gone. That's what's going to happen, right? He's gone. So that's the thing that
Makes sense.
yeah, that's the thing that makes this very like annoying in the sense that maybe they should have just left. Like I know I pushed back against. I remember when I came on here, I was like, no. That leaving Roots would have been a bad idea. But in hindsight, if I knew that in January we were only going to bring in one player, because I thought they were going to be like at least 3 players for his system so that he can use the remaining of January to the end of the season to coach the system, get the patterns in, but they brought in only one player and knowing the financial situation they were in, I think they should have left. I've walked back my decision. I think they should have left Root in there, bring in Amorim in the summer with 3-4 players. Because a lot of, like you said, football is psychological, right? The allure of him now is kind of gone. Because him coming in fresh with the team, with the players, probably winning another Portuguese title, with a new Premier League, it helps. I think that's what helped Ten Hag in his first season.
Yeah.
When he came third. That freshness of I just won. The players like, okay, this guy's a winner. That allure is gone now. And he's probably rubbed some off the wrong way already. So next season is going to be, he has a very short leash. So,
but the biggest issue is, and let's talk about that because you probably know the finances and all that kind of stuff a lot better. I know they're just not good. And it really depends on, can they get rid of people and what they get. And it's hard to get rid of people for good money when everybody knows you have to get rid of people because they're just waiting for like the bargain. I mean, if something is not selling, I'll just wait till it goes on the closeout sale. I'm not going to go pay full retail for them. But I mean, how does that? It's not like they're gonna have a lot of funds. I mean, I don't know. They always say like, "Oh, United doesn't have money," and then they go spend like 150, 200 million in the summer and stuff like that. But that's along with like the other stupid things they're doing in the background. It almost literally looks like it's being run by like a poorly designed Disney villain. Like just taking people's lunches away, like, and like just, and then like giving like 9 million to the guy for firing him and stuff like that. I mean, how does that like affect like how you view the team? Is it even people are already tired? They don't even want to watch it. But then you get these news on top of it. It's like,
I think the thing about PSR, a couple of things there's a lot of misinformation about PSR. Like wages is part of what factors into PSR rules, and actually wages of the staff of your staff is part of PSR rules. That's one thing a lot of people do not know. So some of these calls that were going to happen, I think the manner of communication is terrible. That's the thing. The way they've gone about it, I think the manner of communication is really, really terrible. So that is the main crux of all of this. The way they've gone about it, like you need to communicate and say some of these things we're doing, this is why we're trying to do it, this is the end goal, rather than they're just doing it like we don't care what people think, which is what they're doing. Just making the cuts. People are mad, people can be mad. I think I'm just more pissed about the fact that they came in last season, they did an audit, they must have seen the numbers were bad. And once you do an audit, you see the numbers, and you're at the decision point to keep a firing manager, knowing that if you're keeping him, you're about to spend 200 million pounds, however much you spent in the summer. You should have weighed that risk and reward at that point and said, you move on from him, and you bring the person you want to back and give that person the funds. That's the thing that really pissed me off, because if you did an audit, you have seen the numbers already. So when you saw the numbers last year, what made you take that huge gamble to extend Ten Hag's contract? And that's what makes them look very incompetent right now. The costs are bad. I get it. And it's like losing their jobs. And people are saying, oh, it does not impact. It does. It does. Wages is part of PSR. It does impact. All the costs to like people getting laid off. The lunches part I think it's excessive. I think all that is just trying to do like, okay, we are in like austerity mode now, so everything has to get cut. I think that lunch part is just unnecessary. That's the unnecessary part now.
Yeah, I mean, how much don't they have a PR department, that says like, dude, it's not really worth, we're going to spend more money in trying to make up for this in PR than you're saving with the lunches kind of thing. And I think, Glenn, what makes it bad is, and you're probably right. I mean, maybe they were bloated and these people were going to get cut. But I think what makes it worse is going, then you're paying a ton more. Like you're paying millions more for your bad decisions, like Ashworth and stuff like that. And then, you're making those decisions, wasting millions. And then you're like, we can save $100 over here. Let's go do that kind of a thing. I think that's probably what's backfiring. And like, how do you look at it from somebody looking from outside in?
Yeah, we've said loads. We've said nearly every week on the show. The optics are terrible. It's just like the least effective PR campaign, unless the campaign was to tarnish the reputation of the club internally and externally, which they're very successful at. If that was your objective, then Ineos is a flying success. If that's not what you're trying to do, and you're trying to, as you said, really insightfully, you're working with this audit. You've seen a lot of money's being wasted. You've seen that, internally there's a lot of issues financially with the club, which wouldn't surprise me. But when all's said and done, for any fan, whether they're a United fan or they just follow the Premier League in general or a different club, when you see players like Mason Mount, for example, who is on however many 100,000 a week, and you can replicate that throughout half the squad, say, it's really hard to justify what feels like some very petty savings, right? If we're going to go from, a hot lunch to fruit As you said, that has this kind of Disney villain. The fruit's worse than nothing. I don't know. There's something super insulting about just like an apple,
I wish
a
like they
poisoned
just
apple
say,
being on the
not
table.
even fruit, just cut the whole lunch. I think it's
Yeah,
worse.
just
Like,
cut
but
it.
you know what? You get an apple. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that bad. Come on, guys, you get an
Yeah.
apple.
Say thank you for the banana. Exactly. I mean, the way that this is like presented and then obviously gleefully like latched upon by media and other fans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much low-hanging fruit for a sad comparison for people to criticize the club about.
That was good. That was a good cut. I like
but it's all of their own doing. And we're saying that these, you can cut as many staff or staff benefits, if you describe food as that. You can cut this as much as you want, but like you just look at the bloat of the squad, you look at how many members of the squad are overpaid, at least in terms of what they're offering the team on the pitch. I get wages have spiked. Like we all three of us support Premier League clubs, with one of us with very different wage structures. But nonetheless, I know that the cost of wages is exorbitant, right? To have a quality player who you expect to play for Liverpool and Manchester United and bring you guys glory domestically or international, or in Europe, right? Nonetheless, it doesn't feel as if Man United are getting very much value for the millions upon millions they're sinking into wages every single week. So just from the outside, it's just that you just look cruel towards your staff. And let's not forget, right, a lot of these staff are essential too, right? Manchester United does not operate without these staff that are apparently just being, let go, hundreds let go. My favorite story, I think, this week was something about like they didn't want to wash they wanted to rewash the players' shirts instead of giving them new ones or something, which, who knows, environmentally is maybe a fantastic thing, but it just looks so cheap. They just look like cheapskates. They just look really cheap. I'm sure that's great for the environment, but it just looks embarrassing. It looks like a club that's maybe going into administration down the line, right? That's the kind of cost cutting we're seeing. But we have this new Ineos, right? It was meant to be this whole kind of, smart capitalist, whatever. But he just seems more, like a cold, compassionless vulture that's come in and is kind of squeezing the club, I think, in all the wrong areas. That's the feeling I get as somebody who just follows this from the sidelines. It just feels like the PR cost surely is going to be worse than the wages, than the money saved. And it's tricky. But as you said, United are going to be a victim, is a victim of their own mistakes here, but it's going to be harder to offload these players, as we've seen, right? It's going to be harder to recruit players at a good wage with the quality you guys expect, because everybody knows this background, right? Everybody knows that it's a bit of a cheap shot right now to go to United and maybe try and take someone on the cheap, because as soon as you look desperate as a club, whether you're buying or selling, as you said, there wasn't as much January recruitment as you guys expected. That's kind of surprising, right? That's going to have clubs thinking you're going to be real desperate for some players in the summer. Okay, well, we're going to work with a club that's really desperate here. So these things really compound. But the approach they've taken has been, it's left a lot of us just shocked. You just never know what have we said before on the show? The mascot being fired, the ball boys and girls, when your roof is leaking, seriously, fix the stadium, fire Mason Mount, and you'll be in a much better position.
I can see Mason Mount maybe taking everybody's, like every day somebody takes the jerseys home to wash it or something, like back in like school. Whose turn is it? Like, take all the jerseys home and wash them. Bring the pennies tomorrow.
There's a conspiracy theory. There's a conspiracy theory going around that Ineos is purposely trying to tank the value of the club so they can get it on the cheap from the Glazers.
There you go. There's the anti-PR. There's the anti-campaign.
Why would Glazers sell them when they're charging so much interest right back? It's like the gift that keeps on giving. What is that's the thing. It's a vicious cycle, right? Like, it's going to be hard to sell. It's going to be more expensive to lure. Hey, Manchester United always has the name, right? So if you go to Netherlands and a guy in Feyenoord, he will, regardless, he'll be like, maybe I'm the one. Like, that makes it or whatever. We'll come to United. But if he has options, he's going to be less likely to come to United, or he's going to ask for more, or he's going to say, well, Casemiro's getting paid more than Mo Salah, so I should probably be getting like 250 or something myself. It's going to be expensive. I'm sure the optimistic view is make a couple of additions, sell some people, go up to 10th or whatever. Like, try to move up in the... What is the realistic? Like, what do you think is going to happen, Io, in next? Like, what is the real... what does your brain tell you? I'm sure your heart tells you a lot of great things, but what does your brain tell you that's going to happen next season and like summer into the next season?
Funny enough, I'm one of the like United fans among my friends, United fan base. They say I'm pessimistic, a lot. So yeah, and I've been this way for a long time. I think what is going to happen is United are not going to make Europe clearly this year. Next year, because I mean they literally announced that they're making cuts to get ready to be a Europa team for the next 4 years, right? And I think some of the PR that United is doing, in my opinion, and I think you kind of hinted towards this earlier on, is like they are overselling this to an extent so that when it's time to buy players, oh, United is broke, to see if they can improve their negotiation power, right? I think they're overselling the level of like austerity measures. I think they're overselling it. I think we're in a buy transfer situation, but they're overselling it. Now, back to what I think is going to happen. I think we have this new director of football who was like temporary before. They made him permanent, Christophe Vivel. I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to get young players, like go young, try to get some unknown players, whether it's kind of what Spurs did, what Spurs were doing. They'll get a couple of that, like from the Championship, some of them from the Premier League. They'll do that for the first, see what's going on in Amorim's project. Like I said, if it doesn't work out, like towards the next year, if he's still looking this bad, I think he's going to get cut. They'll bring somebody else in, and they'll live with the fact that for at least 2 years, we're probably not back in Champions League for 2 years. And they're going to go really young and try to, bring in players from the academy, target some young players from the Premier League, and just try to do it gradually. I think that's all they can do.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, because we don't have many options. Like, because what we were doing before was the whole, okay, let's rebuild. After 1 year, like, no, let's get ready-made players. They'll get, the Casemiros, Zlatans, get ready-made players for now. We get Champions League for a couple of years. It blows up in our face again. Like, we want to rebuild, like, we're essentially, the analogy somebody gave me, that's the best analogy, is like United, we're trying to repair a plane while flying the plane. That's what we've done for the last decade. So now we have to ground the plane, put apart the parts, and actually like do the re-engineering, do the design from scratch, design the plane, the aircraft. Like that's where we are now. So I assume that for the next 2 years we're not making Champions League, and we're going to and a lot of United fans are not going to like it. People are going to go crazy, but that's what they have to do. That's the only choice.
That's the thing, though, right? Like you said, Spurs.
Yeah.
I mean, good thing Jake isn't here, but let's face it, the expectation, the bar is very low already. Whereas with United, the expectation, the pressure, which brings a toxic environment, is really not ideal for young players. Whereas you go to Spurs as a young player, I mean, any trophy is a win. So, like the bar is low. It's a lot less stress, and I think, suits young players who are trying to make it in the Premier League. Whereas United's, you guys are basically going to be ruining a lot of careers, is what you just told us. A lot of
I think it's communication. I think it's the communication and the long-term plan that matters, right? I think that's the communication and long-term plan is what matters, right? And when I say young players, there's still some expert. I think Bruno will still be here for like a year, 2 years. We have people like Mazraoui delayed at 25. Whenever Lisandro comes back, Lisandro is 25. So like there's still going to be some senior players in the squad. Like they're supposed to like kind of help along the way. But I think they're going to start targeting less than 23-year-olds and bring them in the squad and try that, because that's the only thing. That's literally the only thing they can do. That's where we are. That's the only thing they can do.
Saidu, who loves a transfer, by the way. I mean, I think we just literally talked about the complete opposite, though, Saidu, like saying it's nuts. You just ask Ayo. Getting players from all angles does not really help much unless you're spending it wisely, because this is basically what happens. You don't even get lunch at the end of the day. So let me ask you guys this before we head out. Wanted to get your guys' take. The new rule of the 8 seconds or a corner kick. What do you think of that, Glenn? Mind you, we did have one that wasn't enforced before. This is a bit easier to enforce, I think, because you're not giving a crucial indirect kick inside the box. You're like, go defend the corner now, kind of a thing. Like it, hate it, where are you at with it?
Yeah, love it. Get on with it. Stop time wasting. Easy. If you need more time, drop it, put it in your feet. Yeah, no problem with that at all. I mean, I'm sick of watching goalkeepers.
You think you'll be enforced?
That's part two, isn't it? I It's a great question. I'm glad I'm not a referee because, to be fair, like if I was a referee, many jobs, right? Many workplaces, your boss, director, whoever gives a new directive, and you're like, "Oh, for F's sake, this is going to make my life so much harder." And you're not the person doing it yourself, right? You're the boss. You get to decide this. I got that feeling from this, right? I was just like, "Oh, if I was a referee and I have another timer, I got to keep an eye on this and that." As a fan, I mean, great. Speed up the game. I'm a goalkeeper, and when I play 7-a-side on Sunday, which is not quite the level of the Premier League here in Iowa City, I usually get it
Like
out
a
of my
Manchester
hands.
United level?
Yeah, a little bit better, a tiny bit better than that. About Casemiro pace is how we play. I get it out of my hands in 8 seconds. It's easy. It's not a problem. It's just like, hopefully it won't go the route of the added on time, because for me that was a mess. And like, from a fan's perspective, if you're in the ground, if you're on TV, nobody wants 12, 11, 14 minutes of added time. And for me, that explicitly benefited teams with bigger squads. That, for me, in my opinion, that always would help the top half of the table, top 4, because there's more time for you to get a goal in informally Fergie time. This one, I think, great. Move it on. Stop time wasting. Sounds good. I don't really see a problem with it.
I mean, the biggest criticism it gets, Io, is, obviously, like everybody says, well, there's one now. Nobody's enforcing it. What's the point? I just feel, my take is that, referees, it's always the famous line, right? They don't want to impact games and stuff, and then screw every freaking game. But, when you give an indirect free kick inside the box and stuff like that, especially when nobody else is calling it, unless your name is Simon Mignolet, nobody gets called out on you. So, they don't call it because it kind of like goes away. I feel like this might happen, especially in the beginning. There'll be like a point of emphasis. We were talking about this, I think, on the Monday show, because I feel like, for example, last year when they really focused on kicking the ball away afterwards, we still say, oh, he kicked the ball away, didn't get anything and stuff. But if you objectively watch a game and you look, you're like, man, that's really has stopped. Like, they really stopped how bad compared to, like, watch some old highlights. And you're like, yeah, they really changed that. So do you think they will enforce this? Because it's not as big of a punishment. It's a corner kick.
Correct. I think they will. I think they will enforce it, and I think that's the thing why they set it for a corner kick rather than indirectly. That's pretty much like a penalty. I think they will enforce it. I do anticipate there'll be a lot of controversy, in the sense that I'm sure some fans will be asking for, it was 6 seconds. Go to VAR. Let's go check it on VAR. Let's check it on VAR. What does the VAR timer person said? It's 6 seconds. How did you get 8 seconds? That I can see that happening. But I think they will enforce it. I do. I really do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know, like, they're counting the last 5. I think, the questions are, and hopefully they'll have it. Wade says he likes that decision. Less shenanigans. The corner is still dangerous. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I guess, well, not Arsenal anymore. They used to be dangerous, but only dangerous against Dutch teams now. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I can see that argument, because when does it start, I think, is going to be the thing. It's not like a shot clock. Like, if somebody's coming out for a cross, I'm barely getting it, and actually naturally falling, I mean, they're not going to, like, hop on their feet. I'll tell you what's going to happen a lot. Right now, I'm calling it. When they get across and they fall, they're going to hold their head and stuff. It's going to be a head injury. Like, suddenly everybody is holding their head. I think that's you're going to get that a lot. But, like, when does it start? Like, realistically, if you're a goalie, Glenn, you come out, if you jump and then fall, I mean, this is not like a military drill over here that you're going to just hop on your feet in like 3 seconds and then make a sensible decision in another 2 seconds, within 2 seconds, and throw it. So it's a matter of when they start that 8 seconds, I guess.
Correct. Yes.
And which we don't know. We just know the last 5 is going to be counted down. When it will start, God knows. So we'll see about that. Okay, let's do Tonali's picks, because you know what? I think we went broke last week on those Wednesday games. Did not pan out very well, I don't think, for most. So we're never going to open this academy that we want to call number 9s moving forward. Okay, Glenn, let's start with you. Tonali's picks, the upset of the week. Where is the money going?
Okay, let's have a little look, because I haven't seen the fixtures yet. Are All right, what else have we got? Yeah,
So I'll scroll down all the way to expose those. There's a couple of like interesting ones there. I'm hoping on IO over here, but
this is
not putting a lot of
tricky.
hope on that. I'm not putting money on that.
You know, it's funny. It's tricky for upsets because, you know, for example, I don't think many people would see Southampton, for example, getting anything at Anfield. Maybe West Ham Newcastle catches my eye. You get the sense that Isak is probably going to be rested for this game, right? Because he got a knock again, and they're going to be wrapping him up for the final. Anthony Gordon had a silly red card following Cunha. Just absolute chaos this weekend for petulant Reds. And apparently Lewis Hall also has an ankle injury. We're not too sure about the level of that. So for me, that seems like a Newcastle side missing 3 of their best players. I'd 100% say Lewis Hall is one of the best fullbacks in the league at this point.
I agree.
They're thinking about a cup final. And, you know, they're going away. You know, I wouldn't say it's the hardest place to go, West Ham, but to me, that feels like that has enough context to think, okay, maybe there's going to be an upset here, right? And I think it would be an upset because Newcastle, top 5, top 6 up there, and West Ham aren't. So with the squad issues, I'll go with that. But I think it's a tricky week for Tonali's picks.
Ayo, you betting on your boys?
No, that's gonna be a stinking draw. I can smell it all the way from here.
I'll take that.
It's gonna be a smelly 0-0 draw. Smelly, boring. I ask anybody to not watch that game. It's gonna be a smelly 0-0 draw. My Tonali pick is go put it back on. Let me see. I was gonna call it. I think Villa mailed it in. So I think Brentford is gonna beat Villa. Villa mailed it in already. This is Unai Emery's season. Anytime he's in Europe, he's mailed it in. Yeah. So I think Brentford are gonna beat Villa. That's my Tonali pick.
That's actually a solid bet because Villa, especially, and they had a huge win too, so that will have some. There'll be a little bit of hangover over that. Man, I was going to go with West Ham too, but you know what? I'm going to go with Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Bournemouth going away. I think that's a team that can take advantage of that high line. They have the players to do it. So I'm going to go with that because we sure need to make some kind of money to start this freaking academy over here. God knows, because Io needs cheap players to go to. Go play at United. So we got to
fund me. Next time I'll be on here, I'll have a GoFundMe for United on my
I've been ignoring that. Honestly, I don't consider them dark horses. I know that's the narrative because of Liverpool's form and stuff like that, but I wasn't happy with that draw. The only thing I will tell you this is, though, and I've been kind of saying this over the last couple of days, but I'm a bit more confident than I would be with the old system because PSG can really hurt you on the counter. We saw what they did to City and stuff. But we don't go attacking like crazy like we did in the past. Slots, is a bit more calculated. We're a bit more in control when we attack. So I'm kind of like hoping on that. But so you're saying they will do the upsets in the rounds?
I'm picking them to go all the way.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
Now I know you're a United fan. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, gentlemen. Thanks to all those tuning in today. We'll be back next week. We'll have a whole slot of games, probably a lot more rectangles talking about those games next week. But have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Take care.